All right. We've looked at the beginning of chapter 6 and the vocabulary at the end of chapter 6 briefly, but I want to cover that ground just shortly again and then add the article and begin to translate some sentences so that you should be able to do homework 8, homework or 8A. So let's go to a presentation, and this one's on chapter 6. And let's start the presentation. PowerPoint doesn't seem to give me a pointer in Zoom, so I'll have to do without it, but you'll remember that we were discussing the first declension feminine nouns, and now we're going to add the article because we need to be able to say the with any Greek word. Now remember, we have 3 classifications of Greek nouns. He breaks these down for you, and just like in this chart at the beginning of chapter 6. We have eta nouns like earth, gay, and we have alpha pure nouns, or what I call Old MacDonald, E-I-E-I-Ro, pure nouns, himera. And by the way, if you watch Dr. Campbell's video, and I'm requiring you to watch his videos as well, he uses a different word. As an example, for an alpha pure noun, he uses hora, which is not in our list, but it means hour, or is simply a word for time. Hora with omega at the beginning. But because it also ends in, the stem ends in ro, hor-a. It's also alpha pure. It's an Old MacDonald noun. He also uses the word doxa here, so 2 of his words, Dr. Campbell's words that he uses for examples, are the same as ours. Now, before we go through that list and make a few comments, let me just review again our vocabulary that you need to learn at the end of chapter 6 now. You need to study this week. You need to memorize these words. Love and sin, and you'll notice that each one I have added the article as well. Hey, agape, love, or the love. But words like love that are more generic, in English, we will generally leave off the article. We don't say, unless we're talking about a specific love, the love of money, then we would say the in English specifically. But in Greek, it's more specific. Hey, agape. And hey, hamartia is the sin. And it might be used of sin in general with the article, but generally the article wouldn't be present in Greek or in English if we're just talking about in a general way about sin. We've also had doxa, but notice that the article does not change even with alpha pure nouns. The article will stay the same. It is hey. It never changes to ha. It's always hey. Just like masculine nouns are always ha, and neuter nouns are always ta. Feminine nouns and first declension feminine nouns are always hey. In fact, any feminine noun, there will be other declensions, particularly the third declension we learn in chapter 14, which are also can be feminine, like the word grace, charis, the word grace. It's very in the same family as chara, for a word for joy, but we don't learn it until chapter 14. Charis is feminine, hey, even though the ending is different. So we have doxa, hey, and I've added the meaning value because I think this is sense of this word. Arche, beginning, ruler, or authority. Now that may look strange, that a word can mean all of these things, but that's simply the way language is. One word can mean many different things, and so we have to be careful in the context how we translate it. Actually, this word probably comes, I'm guessing, to some extent from Hebrew, because in Hebrew, Orosh, the Hebrew word, also can mean beginning, ruler, or authority. Ecclesia, or church, again, is an alpha pure noun, an Old MacDonald alpha noun. Again, but notice, he, ecclesia, not ha, he, the church, or assembly. It can be used in the New Testament simply of an assembly of people, even pagan people. And there it doesn't mean church, it simply means assembly. Or in a synagogue, it would be an assembly. We wouldn't call it a church in the synagogue, unless they were all believers, of course. I'm going to introduce this word, thalassa. It's not in your number 6 in your book, but you should add it to your book, vocabulary 6, he thalassa. Notice how it's spelled with 2 sigmas. It means sea or lake. Greek does not distinguish between salt water and fresh water. So when we say sea in English, we mean salt water. And when we say lake, we mean fresh water. So actually to speak about the Sea of Galilee is a false expression, because it should be Lake of Galilee. The sea being by definition salt water. But maybe it comes from Greek that these 2 words, one word was used for both sea and lake. In any case, thalassa can be salt water or fresh water, and this word can be used of the Sea of, or the Lake of Galilee, that Jesus and his disciples, of course, were on. Hey, ge, makes more sense to us that it would have the article hey, means earth, ground, or land. And so it can be used for even a country. They didn't have national boundaries like we have today, but they did have countries and provinces that they would refer to as a land, the land of Israel, the land of the Romans, and so on. Or it can be used in a general way for the whole earth as they knew it, as they understood it. And these words are all in your vocabulary, except for this one. I want to add this one as well, hey, glossa, because we like to have at least 3 words that are like doxa, that are declined the same. Glossa means tongue, or language, or utterance. Your mother tongue is a glossa. Your language is glossa. We have the word entole, which means commandment. We have the word exousia, which means authority, ability, or right. It's the one that's used in John 1:12. To those who believed in him, he gave the authority or the right to be children of God. It is our standing that we have in Christ. It is not so much power as it is the right. And of course, any power comes from the right to be. Zoe means life. And the rest of these words you can find in the lexicon. I'm adding he aralfe, which is also not in chapter 6, but you know it already. And we should have ho adelphos, brother. We should have sister, he adelphe. This is one case where the feminine form fits the gender of the person. Usually masculine, feminine, neuter, gender do not match the gender of people or things in the translation or in the New Testament, but this case they do. Ha Adolphos, brother, masculine. He Adolphe, sister. And you should add this also to vocabulary 6. So you have 4 new words that you need to add with your pen or pencil to your textbook, to the vocabulary list in chapter 6. Sophia, wisdom, and these words are also in the vocabulary. And now I want to add to these forms that we have already looked at. I want to make some comments and then add the article. You'll notice that, again, we have alpha pure. We have Old MacDonald nouns like himera, and we have eta nouns like ge or phone, sound or voice, or arche, or and here I've added the ending, and we have again alpha pure nouns, and we have alpha nouns that are not alpha pure. Now, as you look at this list, you'll notice that I've placed several nouns now from the vocabulary here in the correct form corresponding to the case. For example, the vocative singular is also a, or alpha, a, in the case of alpha pure nouns, or doxa. But the accusative is agapein with ein, with eta nouns, and on with accusative feminine with alpha pure nouns, with any alpha noun actually. Himeron, exousion, thalason, doxon. So if it's the object of the sentence, if accusative case, or for example, the object of the preposition eis, which takes the accusative case into the C, eis ten thalason, on, thalason, would be accusative case. Eis, thalason, into C. The only other thing we need to watch out for is that the genitive feminine singular is as, and the accusative feminine plural is also as. And but if we know our words, vocabulary words, we will know that archas is an eta noun, and it cannot be as. It would have to be eis. If it were genitive singular. It's only alpha pure nouns that have as as the genitive singular. But the accusative feminine plural is also as. So be careful about this, that you don't get these mixed up, that you separate the genitive feminine singular with the accusative feminine plural. Thankfully, the genitive feminine plural, genitive feminine plural is own, like we had before. But you notice that now we have gotten away from oo. We had genitive plural singular oo, logu, and even the neuter nouns, paidiu, of the child, of the infant. We don't have that anymore. We have eis or as as the genitive singular, and own as the genitive plural. That's the same. Now, you need to learn the full declension of the article. You need to learn all of the forms, all 24. That's the third task that you actually have, that I forgot to mention in the first video. The full declension of the article, um, and I will add the video by Dr. Campbell where he discusses all 24 forms. I know it seems like a lot to add 8 more forms, but once we have those 8 new ones for the feminine form, we have all the forms of the article that we will ever have, only 24. So ha, we know from ha logos, and ta, we know from ta paideon, and ta prosopon, the words in chapter 4, the vocabulary. And now in chapter 6, we are adding the feminine form, the first declension feminine words, and then noun is hey. And forms of hey that we will talk about in just a moment. Now so the easiest if we add those here to the feminine nouns. And you'll notice that I'll only put one hey because it will be the same. The article will be the same with every feminine word. So it's hey ge, the land. Hey phone, the voice. Hey ha hemera, the day. Not ha hemera. Hey hemera. Hey hamartia, the sin. Hey doxa, the glory. Hey thalassa, the lake or the sea. In every case, it's hey. There is no article ha, only hey. Even though we might have an alpha pure noun, we have only one form of the feminine article. The vocative is always hey, and the accusative is tain. So even though the word, now it's easy with agapein, John, let's see, John likes love. A simple sentence, John likes love. Love has to be in the accusative case because it's a direct object. John is the subject. John likes love. And since the object is love, it has to be teen agapein, or better, John likes the love. Same with day. I like the day. In that case, I might use a verb like phileo instead of agapao, love. Phileo also means I like or I love. If I say philo, contraction, I like the day. Tin himeron. Notice that the accusative is on, but the article is 18. Tin himeron. And as we go down, we continually see that the article is eta, but the ending may be different if it's an alpha pure or if it's an alpha pure noun, especially. The dative, te, with zoe, but also with hemera, iota subscript. Even though the alpha has an iota subscript, the article is still te. Now the plural is high, and the ending is also I, so the plurals will be the same, except that with the accusative, we have tas, and with the dative plural, we have tais. The endings, though, it's the same as the endings, and the genitive plural will always be tone for every gender, masculine, feminine, or neuter. The genitive plural is tone. ton gon, of the lands, ton phonon, of the voices, ton hemeron, of the days, ton doxon, of the glories, the plural, the genitive plural of. Now, it's always worthwhile reviewing the verb aimer. So don't forget back from chapter 4, I am, you are, he, she, it is, aimer, estin, esmin, we are. But let's look at a sentence briefly. He agape tu Jesu estin zoe. First thing I do is look for the verb. Find it? Yes, I will. But if I do it in this order, the translation of sentences is not so difficult because I find the verb, estin, is. I find the subject, he agape. Third person singular, estin, goes with the nominative case of agape, love. Love is. Now, I have more. I have tu Jesu, which would mean of Jesus. So he agape tu Jesu simply means the love of Jesus is estin. And then I have the word for life, zoe. And don't ask why it isn't zoin, accusative case, because the answer is simply that the word is does not take a direct object, so it doesn't have the accusative case. The verb aimer does not take the accusative. So the sentence reads, the love of Jesus is life. He agape tu Jesu estin zoe. Let's take this sentence. Go for the verb first. Notice, zeto. Zeteo has contracted to zeto, and it means I seek or I am seeking. Either translation is acceptable. Now the subject is I. I don't need to look for a subject any further because it won't change this. First person singular I has to be I. I am seeking or I seek, but what am I seeking? Notice evangelion, on is in the accusative singular case, so I am seeking a promise. I don't have an article, so I'll translate a promise in English. I am seeking a promise, tes zoes, of life. You could translate of the life, but this is the case of a generic noun, which in English simply would be translated life. I am seeking a promise of life, not of the life, because life is general. It's not specific. So learn to go for the verb first, and then the subject. I find the subject inside the verb, and I find the direct object, and then I'm able to put the rest. If I go from English to Greek, I have a more complex sentence here. They praise a wisdom of man, but we are not rejoicing. Let's see what that looks like in Greek. Sophion tu anthropou doxazusin Allah u chairomen. Now, why is this a good translation? The correct translation of they praise a wisdom of man. Notice doxazusin, third person plural. I don't have a plural subject, for example, logoi words, or paidia, children, infants, or tekna, children. I don't have a plural subject here. So doxazusin must be the verb to. They, instead of the children, I just say they are praising. And now the direct object, Sophion to anthropou. Sophion is wisdom. Notice I used a wisdom because there's no article with Sophion. It doesn't read tain Sophion, it just says Sophion. So I translate, they praise a wisdom of man to anthropou, but Allah, but we are not rejoicing. U chairomen. U means not. Chairomen means we rejoice, or we are rejoicing. Now, Dr. McIver mentions the fact that if you're translating u chairomen with the simple present, you have to add the English word do or does. So then we would say, if we use the simple present in English, they praise a wisdom of man, but we do not rejoice. We have to add the helping verb do or does in English if we have a simple present. We do not rejoice, or with the continuous present, we are not rejoicing. So you should begin then to be able to translate simple sentences. You should be able to translate simple sentences in your homework. We'll just do one of them just to practice something directly from your homework. So I'll share the screen again just briefly and look at the textbook again here. You'll notice that he also gives you the full declension of the article, as I've already done. And again, notice that there is no there's no ha in the feminine article, only he. And he explains the article takes the gender of the noun it qualifies. The man is ho anthropos. The article is masculine because the noun anthropos is masculine. The work is ta ergon. The article is neuter because the noun ergon is neuter. The day is he hemera. The article is feminine because the noun hemera is feminine. Again, there is no article ha with alpha pure nouns, only he. Now, if we go down here and take one of the sentences from your homework, let's take number 11 here. And first of all, we look at the verb. We look for the verb first, chairo. Chairo means I rejoice, or I am rejoicing, continuous present. So I've already found not only the verb, but the subject, because I cannot have any other subject but chairo. I am rejoicing. I rejoice. I rejoice not. What? In tais, into lice, ton, anthropon. Notice in is a preposition that takes the dative case. So entole is in the dative plural case. In tais intolice means then in the commandments. And we have a further explanation, ton anthropon, in the commandments of men. If you translate of the men, it will be okay. But this is another one of those generic nouns in English. Here, anthropon is probably not referring to a specific group of men. It might be, but generally in this type of usage, this English word would simply mean mankind. So I am not rejoicing in the commandments of man, or in the sense of mankind, a generic noun. If you take the next sentence, ha theos eche himeron tes doxes. And remember, go for the verb first. And we find it, eche. Third person singular. So we're not surprised to have a subject in the nominative case. God, leave off the article because in English we don't use it with proper names. God has or is having himeron tes doxes, a day of glory. If you translate of the glory, I won't count it wrong, but in English it's actually another generic noun, a day of glory. In other words, when Jesus comes back, I think this sentence is referring to the fact that God is having a day of glory. This may be what we call a futuristic present even. God is having a day of glory. It's a way of saying absolutely certainly that God will have his day, his final day. Well, I'll leave the rest of the translation here to you. You can also look up the answers in the back of the book, of course, for the odd numbered exercises. But remember, don't just look them up and copy them down, but try them first and see, then compare your answers. That's why the author put the answers in the back of the book for the odd numbered questions, so you could use them to learn. Now, you are also required to watch Dr. Campbell's video, and there will be some a couple of Moodle quizzes to go along with these exercises and homework. We don't have class, but we do have video segments, and we do have quizzes and exercises, homework to do. So please get your homework in on time, and I will see you next week as we take up the subject of adjectives. So make sure you learn this material very well, because we build on it. Each week we build on it some more.